Get into this now. The High Court in Pretoria has set aside President Cyril Ramaphosa's recognition of Prince Misuzulu or King Misuzulu Gazwelthini. The decision follows applications by the late monarch's sibling, Prince Mbonisi Zulu, as well as Misuzulu's half-brother, Prince Simakade Zulu. They sought relief to review and set aside a meeting held in May of 2021, and that's where the appointment was made. Judge Norman Davis ruling that the process was flawed, unlawful and invalid. Ramaphosa now has to appoint an investigative committee as stipulated by the Traditional and Khoi-San Leadership Act. Now, the president has also been slapped with a costs order. Joining us for analysis now on this judgment is cultural expert, Professor Sihawukele Ngubane, who joins us via the virtual platform. Prof, good morning to you. Before we get deeper into the details of this judgment, does King Misuzulu Gazwelthini have reason to worry about being a legitimate king of the Zulu nation?
Good morning and good morning to your viewers. I think there is nothing that His Majesty need to worry about, because we still maintain that he is the legitimate king of the Zulu nation. So there's nothing to worry about.
The judgment itself does say, Professor, that this is not about the kingship. It does not annul his kingship, but this has to do with the process that was followed by the president to recognize him and that all-important certificate of recognition. Do you think, though, that the challenger, Prince Simakade Zulu, sees it the same way?
I agree with you, because that's my analysis, that the application that was before the court was on the process. And I think the process need to be left with the courts, because the judgment is arguable. The lawyers can still argue about the judgment or even appeal to the Constitutional Court of the judgment. But I'm not too sure at this point that most people within the Zulu nation are aware of that the king is still on the throne, because his position as the king has not been denounced yet until the final verdict, after the committee has submitted their report to the president. So I think the process is clear. There are two processes that does not affect the kingship of the Zulu nation for now.
The king, yes, he is on the throne, Professor Ngubane. However, by attacking the process followed to recognize him, surely that brings into question the legitimacy of his kingship.
We are so determined that his position is his birthright, because we know the custom behind the polygamous marriages, that the queen that has been appointed by the community and the lobola was paid by the community is legitimate to produce an heir. So I think that will not change. That will not change. And also, his mother is from the royal family, and he himself is of the royal family. So he remains the heir of the Zulu nation, in whatever way the outcome would be, but he remains the rightful heir of the throne.
As we said at the beginning of this conversation, Professor Ngubane, the court has now ordered President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint an investigative committee, and that committee effectively has got to listen to the other side, which has felt that it was not given the space or the platform to express exactly how they felt. So that brings another question, and this has to do with whether or not President Ramaphosa may have only paid attention to the late Amazulu Prime Minister, Prince Misuzulu, and in essence, ignoring the other side. Would that be a fair assessment?
No, not at all. I don't seem to agree with you because all processes were followed. You have alluded to the meeting that took place in May where a discussion was made. I think what we need to say here is that the king is not voted to the position, but it is part of the ancestral lineage. So he is there because of the lineage. So what would have gone wrong are processes as the judgment prescribes. But the fact remains that he is in that position because of his birth circumstance. So I think that supersedes the court decision, because if you care to think of it, the court is there because the monarch is legislated. So the process of the courts should continue, and the king remains in his throne because of the custom and the tradition of the Zulu nation. Unless we want to challenge the customs, which is also okay, because we always say that culture is dynamic. So maybe if the royal family wants to review the custom, so it's up to them. But in this particular moment, I think the processes prior to the coronation were properly observed. We know all the processes of hunting, going to the cattle crawl, and all those processes were observed. And the fact that the rituals were conducted, it was linking the current king to the former kings or the ancestors to make him legitimate. So whatever happens, that fact remains.
Well, Professor, you are focusing the attention of your argument purely on the cultural and customary practices. And those, exactly as you've said, were observed in the lead up to the coronation. However, you are now, though, forcing us to look deeper into how important is the recognition of the king by the government of the day. And that is why, therefore, that certificate is so important, because well, no matter which way we look at it, we cannot minimize the importance of the role played by the state. And I say this because there's an amount in excess of 60 million rand that is paid to the royal family by the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal for the king's upkeep. That is important. Are you saying that perhaps if we are going to stip things into the legal realm, maybe therefore the royal family must possibly relook at whether or not the legal side of things is observed?
Yeah, I think this is entirely upon the royal family to make a decision. But we as the nation, we are concerned about the consequences of the wrong or misjudgment of this judgment. And it will further divide the Zulu nation. But it is upon the hands of the royal family to resolve this problem, because from where we are sitting, we know that we have a king. And even long before the certificate was offered to the king, he was already the king of the Zulu nation, long before the coronation, which could have happened this year, which could have happened 2 years to come, but already he was recognized by tradition as the legitimate king of the Zulu nation.
Professor Sihawukele and Ngubane, let me thank you very much for your time, a cultural expert. It's a very tricky situation.